Stream Deck is not playing nicely with me right now. It was not unmuting my mic. So let's try that again. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing on this Wednesday? We are back with another Ask Tim stream. We do these streams every 4 p.m. Central Time on Wednesdays where you can ask me questions about your 3D printers. So before we get started, we usually go over some of the new stuff we've got going on. If you guys noticed, we got a bunch of new Easy Pi kits, and I'm actually printing with mine right now. You can see here. If you guys saw the video we posted, I used my Ender 3 as the demo machine, and it's doing the thing. It's actually printing more Pi cases. So, and I can show you here. So this is the time lapse here that it did. So I can go ahead and pull that up. And you can see there, did a nice little time lapse for me. So I can use that if I want to with videos and stuff. You can get more advanced, but these are with the default settings. This is run the EasyCam HD. So you can do some cool time lapse and stuff. And the funny thing is, we're already sold out of them, but I do have more boards on the way. So if you guys do a back order, we should have more boards in about 3 to 4 days here. We actually get those from a vendor here in the US, so we can get them relatively quickly. So if you guys are looking to add remote control to your printer, that is now a possibility again. As we all know, Raspberry Pis have been in short supply, which is why we haven't had any of these kits for, I think it's been over a year at this point. So yeah, we have an alternative. We had to use a different board. It's actually not a Raspberry Pi board. It's a board from a company called, well, I don't think it's a company. They just call it the Rock 4 series. So, and it's a Rock Pi. And the nice thing is about these, what I really like about them is not only is the CPU a little bit faster than the Pi 4s, but the Wi-Fi on it is so much better than the Pi 4 since it actually has a dedicated antenna that's not part of the PCB. So we're using that, and it's actually in the edge of the case, and the cases, we're doing our own custom cases instead of off-the-shelf Raspberry Pi cases, even though these will fit in most cases. But we want to do a plastic case just because one of the complaints we had was the signal was not that great on the silent ones because they were a chunk of aluminum, but I think that's more down to the fact that just the antennas also on the Pi 4s are just not great antennas. They're tiny little PCB ones. So, I mean, these get really good connection. It was connected to my access point at 433 megabits per second, which is plenty fast. And if you're like me, who likes to hardwire other stuff, these also have gigabit Ethernet. So, and there's more stuff that we're including with them. We kind of wanted to do a little more value add to these. And I'm just going to show this really quick here for those of you guys that didn't see it. So we are including a USB cable. We have a proper mounting solution for these as well. So this is meant to bolt right onto your 2020 extrusion for your printer. You can also just leave it sitting there. This just snaps on and off. But this is all included by default, as well as the Ethernet cable. And I'm sending out Cat 6 Ethernet cables because I got to be bougie and extra like that. But yeah, so there it is mounted. I took this before I put it back on the rack. So it's printing. It's back in my little personal farm here. So if you guys want to get this, not only do you get the actual kit, which is literally plug it in, it's ready to go. So you plug your printer into it, plug the power in, turn it on, give it a network connection, and turn it and let it boot up, and it just shows up on your network. And if you want to do Wi-Fi, you just connect into it. There's a video showing that, as well as text instructions on our help center. And in the event that you still can't figure out the Wi-Fi setup, with the help of the video that we posted, you can set up a call with one of our guys, and we will connect into your computer that's on the same network as your Easy Pi kit. We'll go through, guide you through setting up the Wi-Fi, literally take control of your computer, be like, okay, which Wi-Fi is it? Okay, select it, type your password in, and then we'll help you get it connected. So we are doing a little more hands-on support with that, just to make it easier and to give you guys more value with that product. So I'm happy that we can have Pis on printers again, because I have been limping along with some printers because I haven't been able to get Pi boards myself with some like old Raspberry Pi 3s, not even 3B pluses. I had some 3Bs laying around that I just retired because we changed them out from the 3Bs to 3B pluses or the 4s. Just I wanted ones that are a little bit faster, but we were using the older 3Bs, and sometimes they can get sluggish with the interface. But anyways, I'm curious, how many of you guys have How many of you guys have what's it called? Have like remote access on your printers already, or something that you want to do? So let's do first. Who actually has something like this set up on their printers where you can send files to it over the network so you don't have to be dealing with SD cards? I'm just curious. I'm gonna ask you guys some questions really quick, because this is something I literally use every day. All of our printers, if you guys notice, they're not by my computer at all. I don't want to be going over and putting SD cards in them. Literally the only time I use an SD card is if I have a printer that's sitting right here on my bench and I'm testing. That's it. So yeah, if you're running like a Clipper setup, that counts. I'm just curious, like in terms of accessing your printer over the network, whether that's Duet, whether it's Clipper, whether it's Octoprint. Yeah, and like, how painful is it to go back to using SD cards? Can we talk about that? Because yeah. Yeah, I see. Pi 3 with Octoprint only use SD for firmware. Yep. That's the only time I touch an SD card on one of these printers is if I want to update the firmware. It's just so rough. You know, it's nice because I get, I don't know if I have any, well, I guess my Ender 6, these are not on here. But yeah, it's just so painful. It's nice. I load up my slicer on my computer here. I put my STL in there. I slice it. I save the file to my computer. I open up a web browser and go to that printer's IP address. And then I upload the G-code file and I start the print. And then I'll usually have it up on another monitor with its camera up, because I have cameras on all my machines. And I'll go ahead and wait to see it start moving, and then I'll go and check my first layer, and after that I'm done. So the only time I'm getting up and going to the printer is when it's doing the actual start, you know, whereas with an SD, you got to go over there, you got to copy the file to the card, you know, put it in the computer, copy the file, go to the printer, start the print. Now you got to wait for it to heat up. Okay, so I'm going to go, you know, grab a snack or something, but I got to come back in 5 minutes versus just, you know, going over there to check the first layer, and that's the only interaction I have with the printer when I'm starting to print. So, see, someone's messing around with the mini PCs. Yeah, those my favorite of those tiny computers, I'm actually using it for my Home Assistant box, is the HP Elite Desk, the 800 G3s. I do go with the G3s because they have an NVMe slot and they can boot from the NVMe slot, and you can get those for like under $200 if you look, depending on how they're spec'd out, how much RAM, how much what's the word I'm looking for? How much RAM, what processor they have. It's an i3, i5, i7, and what size SSD it comes with. So, but I wouldn't be using those for just one printer, because those draw like 30 something watts. When I actually looked at, I'll pull up right now. I'm going to see here, because I have my Pi setups, my Easy Pi setups. I have them, I think all of them in here, and most of them in the print farm, if not all of them. They're all powered over what are called PoE splitters. So a network cable comes in from my network switch, and I get a USB-C or a micro USB, depending on what board is on the other end. I got different ones, and then I get a network cable. So basically, I don't need to have a separate power adapter because I have network switches that put out power over Ethernet, which is kind of nice. So if I go here, and this is my network switch here over on that rack where the printers are. So you can see here, I got 4 machines hooked up here that are on, and you can see they're all using about the same. So these, I think Bertha is a Pi 3B. That's an older one. So she's pulling about, and this is idle, so it's not even printing. But the Ziltech here, that's pulling 4.05 watts. This is the new Easy Pi setup, 4.10, and this is the Ender 3 S1, 4.09. So it's right around the same as a Pi 4 in terms of how much power it's pulling. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, so, and what I just noticed, maybe, I wonder why my Ender 3 S1 is showing only fast Ethernet, because this is a Pi 4. Bertha's not. I know the Ziltech is, and the Pi 4 should be gig. I'll have to look at that. I mean, not like it matters. I mean, you're not pushing a ton of bandwidth, but I just noticed that. But anyways, yeah, you can see the different power consumption on them. So there, it's about 4 watts. So the point I was trying to make there is like those mini PCs like are anywhere from like 35 to 40 watts up to 50 or 65 depending on there. So let's just say they're, you know, they're 40 watts. You would take the same amount of power to run 10 Easy Pi setups versus one of those mini PCs. So, and they're just not as easy to deal with. So the goal of our kits is plug it in your printer and go. You don't have to be technical at all. So yeah. All right. I hope you guys I see some questions there. Excellent. I love when you guys ask questions while I am doing our little intro here. I'm just trying to jog my memory on what's going on. Just a random thing. If anybody happens to be going to the Gamers for Giving LAN party in Ypsilanti, Michigan, Krista and I will be there along with a couple of my friends. I don't know if anybody. I'm assuming we have some overlap on people that game. I think it's in Ypsilanti, but we're gonna be going there soon, and that's at the end of the month. I think it's the 25th to the 26th. So if you guys have heard of that, I'll be there. Feel free to bug me. I won't mind. I'd actually think it's kind of cool. So I'll post a link in here because it's a good group of people. So if you guys haven't heard of it, I think they still have. I think they still have spots open. So if you're in that area and you're looking for a fun time, I'm gonna check right now and see. Let's see. Attend. Yeah, it's like $45 for a ticket, and I'm trying to see if you're a spectator, it's free. I'm seeing if they have any seats open. So yeah, they got 160 seats open. So if you guys are near there and you like games, it's a really good organization. I kind of went off on tangent, but they're really good people. I haven't been to one in many years because they stopped running them for a little bit, especially during all the human malware stuff. But they basically their thing is they make like these gaming carts for children who are in hospitals, you know, so like kids with cancer and stuff that are bedridden, so they can actually, you know, play some games while they're in the hospital. It's a really good thing. So anyways, if you're going to be there for some reason, whether you're watching now or you're watching later, feel free to try to find me. I think we're in like row K or G or something. So you'll see me. And Chris will be there as well. So let's get into the questions unless I'm looking around, anything jogging my memory, anything, not that I can see. So, all right, let's get into the questions really quick. Let's see who is the first one. Give me 1 second. All right, so last thing said, the corners of my PEI steel sheet peel up on large prints with lots of surface area. That's going to be a common problem with most surfaces because things like to contract. But anyways, what am I doing wrong? The bed is at 70C. So you're not actually doing anything wrong. Just naturally, when you have a large part, this goes with PLA, especially bad with ABS and PETG, ABS being the worst out of them. But you should definitely try to eliminate drafts around the printer. So enclosing it would be perfect. That would solve that issue. The funny story is I was printing very big PLA parts and they fit on my Ender 5 Plus. And that's why I enclosed the Ender 5 Plus. I was actually printing, if you guys remember, I made some, this was over a year ago, 2 years ago. I converted a wine cooler into a cigar humidor and I 3D designed the trays and printed them out of a wood PLA. And they kept warping. So that's one of the reasons I actually enclosed that, because that project, that was the only printer I had that was big enough and there was a readily made enclosure. So enclose the printer. The other thing is, if we're talking just a tiny bit, we're talking just like it's barely curling up, not a ton. If it's a ton, you're going to have to eliminate drafts. If it's curling up just a tiny bit, I'm going to plug my favorite special juice. This stuff, put it on your bed. This stuff works great. I'm sure people are in the chat are going to be like, I use it and it's great too. I know you guys watching have played with this, at least most of you. This is my favorite bed adhesion promotion product. This is always sell. This is what we use. This is my personal bottle, so don't take it. I just opened it. Look at it. I just opened it. And it is open. The only problem is, I don't think Sean watches our streams, but keep it away from your vape juice bottle if you vape. Sean actually put this in his dripper on accident when he was at work, and I was like, he was dying. It was bad. Like, he was just like, bleh. I was like, yeah, I bet that doesn't taste good. And I saw like the bottle of Vision Miner sitting next to there and his juice on the other side. I'm like, you did not. Yeah, but terrible vape juice, really good bed adhesion. So, really good bed adhesion. So, yeah, if you're, like I said, so if you're getting just a little bit, just a tiny little bit of curling, you know, it's just barely, this will probably, I'm not going to tell you this will absolutely fix it, but in my experience, this will usually take care of small issues. If it's like a big part, and by big, I mean like over 250, 300 millimeters, then you're probably going to need to eliminate drafts. You know, one thing you could do is a really cheap solution. Go to the hardware store, pick up some of those foam boards, and build a box around your printer. I've seen guys take them and they just make 4 sides and a top. They hot glue it all together and they just stick it on top of the printer. And it doesn't look pretty. It looks like garbage, but hey, it works and it's cheap. So it's a lot cheaper than an enclosure. So, but if you do want to get an enclosure, we do carry some of the Creality ones. I think we're out of stock on the large size, but like the Ender 3 sizes we have. But yeah, eliminate drafts, and if it's only a tiny bit, this stuff will usually sort you right out. So, but like I said, I'm just giving you my advice here. So, anyways, yeah, Vision Miner. I'll post. Can one of my mods post a link to this in the chat, please? We sell this. And so the story behind this, and it's kind of funny. So my buddy Tyler that was on last week, he stumbled across it and tried it out, and then he loved it. So he like got samples from it. He was giving them to all his friends, you know, because they were a relatively new company. He was helping them get the word out, and he's just a nice guy like that. So he sent me a sample, and I was like, dude, I'm not paying, like, I think at the time the big bottles were like $50. They're 40 for the big ones, and they're like 20 something for the small ones. I'm actually going to check our site. We have 2 sizes. The 120, yeah, so these are, the 120s are 44, so they used to be 50. The prices came down a little bit. And then the normal size, which is 50 mils, is only $20. So I'm looking at that thinking it's, you know, this guy's just trying to make this magic sauce that's overpriced, and it's not going to work well. And then I tried it, and now we sell it. So, like, I used this for many years before we ever started selling it. I reached out to them. Rob's the guy I deal with over there. He's a really good dude. It's really good. So, yeah, I do. Nemo said people say you can cut it with IPA. So here's the thing I've noticed. For PLA, PETG, that works okay. But I found for ABS, you want to use this at full strength. So your mileage may vary. So if you cut it down with isopropyl alcohol to get a little more life out of the bottle, it's not going to work as well as if it's just straight out of here. So I stopped diluting mine. I tried it for a little while, and while it worked okay for PLA, I still had some ABS prints where they would come up, because ABS on PEI does not stick 100%, especially on larger parts. So basically, almost, I don't want to say every printer in my office here has this on the beds, but the majority of them do. My ABS printers do. We use this on all the print farms. So if you got a part from us that was an ABS part, it was printed on our EasyFlex 2 plates with Vision Miner for the adhesion. So, yeah. Anyways, that was a long first question. All right, so Vega says, Slice Engineering is advertising a 2.85 millimeter compatible mosquito. Would you use this on Ender 5 Plus? Seems like a good option since my printers are multi-mount. I would not be messing with 2.85 millimeter filament. Your options are severely limited. That's my advice. There's like 2 companies. There's probably more than 2, but 2 major companies that I know of: Ultimaker and Lulzbot, and even Lulzbot's going over to 1.75 filament. 2.85 is also referred 2.85/3 millimeter filament. Those 2 numbers are tossed around. It's on its way out. I would not be messing with it. You're gonna have a hard time finding filament from multiple different vendors, and you're gonna be limited on your color options and, you know, material types. Like, basically everybody switched over to 1.75 at this point. So I wouldn't do it. You know, you're asking for my advice. I wouldn't do it. So, All right. Cleo Reyes says, are the new... I'm going to try to decipher this. I'm assuming he's asking if the new Easy Pi R4s have the spaghetti detective installed, also known as Obico, or now known as Obico. We do not pre-bundle those, so you can install them. The nice thing about Octoprint, and I barely scratched the surface with the getting started video I posted last night. You can do a lot with these kits, and the main reason I really like the Octoprint system for controlling my printers is the plugin ecosystem. Like, I'll show you right now. You can install it on your machine. So let me pull up. I'm going to pull up a printer that's not printing because I don't want to mess up a print here. But here, so I'll pull up my Ender 6. So you can see my Ender 6 here. It's powered off. So this is also a plugin. So you can see I got my camera here. You can see my fan is off. I have an Easy Pi. This is our Easy Pi with the Pi 4, which is one that we just retired. But obviously still using it. Not going to change all mine out just because it's an older one. It works. So you can see here, if I click this, the fan will come on. So that is our Easy Plug being controlled by the Easy Pi kit, and this is through a plugin. A couple of these are actually plugins as well. It's like the bed visualizer. This is a plugin. The Tasmota one here, so you can see here, if you have the Easy Plug Plus, which is the power monitoring one, it'll actually pull the power usage statistics in as well. Arc Welder's a plugin. It's a very modular system, and this is one of the reasons I like it. This is one of the reasons I didn't like the Duet system is because it's very limited. Like, you couldn't even run a webcam on some of the Duets. There are some you can. Like, you have an SBC Duet 3 setup, but it's a pain in the ass to get running. But there's the plugin system here. So you can see here, these are plugins. These are all the stuff I have installed right now. If I want to add a new one, I can just click Get More, and then so I can just type in a plugin. So if I wanted to go ahead and install, the Obico plugin, which is the remote access one, this one's not used. You can see here, please install Obico. So I can literally just hit install, and it'll install it. Like, let's say I wanted to play with some MQTT automation. There's MQTT plugins. There's even one specifically here. Automatically add your Octoprint server to Home Assistant with MQTT. It's awesome. You can also do, instead of a native Tasmota integration, you can do Tasmota over MQTT. Like, there's a ton of plugins. Like, this is a very mature platform. It's a very stable platform. Like, look at all this. Look at all these plugins. Look at this. So if you get an Easy Pi kit from us, you can play with all this stuff. So, yeah. The only ones, like with these new kits, the only ones I wouldn't recommend messing with are anything that has to do with GPIO pins, because those are intended for Pis, and we're not using Raspberry Pi boards. But everything else is fair game. So, yeah. Plus, to get the access to the GPIO pins, you're cracking the case open. I might play with it later, but I have never used a GPIO pin on any of my Octoprint setups. So I'm sure some people have, but I don't like messing with it. I like just keep the case closed. I'm treating it as a little network controller. All right. Let's see here. Marcus has said, meanwhile, am I going to put on the SV06 Plus? I don't know, because I don't have that printer yet. So I'll let you guys know when I do. So I'm assuming it's going to have a knockoff on it. I'm going to test it and see what it actually draws, because unless they made that bed really high amperage, it might not need more than a 350 in terms of actual amp draw. They might be putting a larger power supply in it just as a selling point, if that makes sense. But like the 350 watt 24 volt ones, that's a 14.6 amp, I believe, power output. So if the bed is drawing less than like 13 amps, you're still going to be able to use a 350 watt main well on the SV06 Plus. So I'm going to check it all. I know what I'm doing. All right. Awesome Angel just says Beagle Cam. I don't know what that means. All right. Let's see. Exile 2828 says, I saw the latest T3 firmware on my Ender 3 with a 427 board, but was wondering about input shaping. Can I use Cure for slicing, or do I have to use a calibration slicer settings? So you should read through the input shaping guide, which I just posted that Hang on. I'll get it again. Making me get links. Now I understand why, like, Joe Rogan's got, you know, Jamie. He's this guy that, like, pulls all his stuff up. Remote chill. Because it'd be so nice to just be able to do that. All right. So input shaping, there's our guide on input shaping. And yeah. So what's our, so yeah, read through the input shaping. I would recommend using Super Slicer. That's what I use for my input shaping. I see we have a tiny Tord. Hi, buddy. Hi, he brought me a lemon. Comet, come here. Come here. He thinks I'm going to take his toy. You are getting big, buddy. So, all right. All right, G-Fish is the next one. He said, what's your opinion on Evo E3D nozzles? I think they're nice, but dear God, are they expensive. Like $25 for a brass nozzle. It's a lot. But you're paying for the convenience of not having to mess with the, not having to mess with the nozzle heat break and a potential leak there. So if it's, my opinion is, if that feature, being able to quickly swap the nozzles and not have to worry about that, is important to you, I'd recommend it. So it's a good hot end. It's a good nozzle setup. Sean and I were actually talking about that earlier yesterday when we were out in the shop about how he likes it, but dear God, are the nozzles expensive. So, hey, dogs. Can we not be super loud? Please? I'd appreciate it. Dear God, that's Comet shaking my desk. That's why my camera is shaking. Let's see. Frederico says, will there be any updates for the Sova SV06 firmware? Yes, it gets updated like all of our other firmwares all at the same time. So if we put out a new firmware update, read the release notes. We do detail what was changed. So most of the time, what's it called? Most of the time there's changes unless we're doing a major code base update. Most of the time changes only affect a couple machines. So read the release notes and see if it applies to your printer. Yeah. So I see. Okay, Echoes, follow the directions here, but I'll answer that question really quick. So if you guys have a Tina 2, there is a bug where I fixed one thing and broke that. I will be pushing out a firmware update this evening that has that patch. So yeah, that was so again, in the release notes it'll say, so basically if you see a firmware update, it's basically just going to fix that one machine. We use the same code base for all of our printers, so they all have their individual configuration files and everything, but we have the shared code base, so we can do one major update to everything and then just test everything. So, but the Tina is not a very popular printer, so that's why we didn't notice that it was broken, because it's not on our compile list because it's a very low popularity machine. So I actually have one sitting brand new in the box that I'm gonna build for my mother. Bean5 says, what's the perfect way to get a perfect Z offset? I have a video for that. Let me see. I'm grabbing it. Let's see. Can someone beat me to the punch on finding it? Oh, I got it. Bam. There you go. Watch that video. That shows you how to do it. All right. Perry says, I'm getting my first print tomorrow, SV06. What's your favorite model for a first print? So I am an old man set in my ways, and I still print Benchies. But there's also Cali Cat. There's also Cali Dragon. There's also Cali Dog. Krista found like a bunch of them. I went downstairs, and they're like all these like little Cali variations. There's like a mouse and a pig and stuff. So just something small like Cali here. I got a couple here. They're sitting here. I have a collection going because I print them. And so there's Cali Dog. You know, kind of looks like Comet. You know, let's see. Is it? It's pretty close. And then Cali Dragon. So they're little prints. I think Cali. What's the latest fad? Is Cali Dragon the latest fad? 3D Benchy was the fad, and I'm sticking with that one. I think that was the longest running one. What is the go-to? Let's see what is everybody post in the chat. What's your guys what's your guys go-to test print? I'm curious. He's also asking while we're waiting for that. Frederico's also asking about the SV06. What slicer and profile do you use? So I am using an older version of Simplify 3D. I'm still on version 4. Version 5 is very buggy for me. I wouldn't, personally, while there's some people that like version 5, I don't like version 5. I started with my Ender 3 S1 profile and then modified the bed size, and that's been a really good start. I probably would not take a Prusa profile because it might be doing other weird stuff specific to Prusa. So, guys, somehow we got through all the questions. It's only 4:34. I got another 26 minutes. If we don't have questions, I'm going to wrap the stream up. Come on. Or maybe I'll push the firmware update while we're sitting here chatting. Let's see, Benchy. I usually print the stupid cat models that come with the printer. That's someone I think who's been messing with Creality printers for a little bit. Unless I'm thinking of a different one. Do you guys remember the money cat, the little money cat that, like, you know, you go in the like Chinese places and it's going like this, but there was like the test print where it was like the little money cat with the fist with the scroll. Here's a little bit of 3D printing lore that most people have forgotten about or not even aware of. So when the Creality CR10s came out, they came with calicat.g code on the card. So it was a test print. And what people found out, and I think what happened was at some point, however they were putting those files on the cards, the image got corrupted. So what would happen was when you would print the little cat test print, people would be posting in the CR10 Facebook groups all the time, every single day, multiple times a day. Why is my print failing? 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 Okay? And what would happen was, as it's printing, right as it got to the collar, the printer would screw up, the G-code would freak out, the head would move off to the side, off to the front, it would screw the print up. But then it would start printing again. So basically, it would decapitate the cat, and it got to be known as Decapicat among the 3D printing groups. So that's a little thing. How many of you guys have heard of that story, of the Decapicat story? Because it was a problem. We literally, because we have a CR10 group. I think we have one of the largest CR10 groups still that TH3D runs, and we had a pin post, and we told people, if you guys post a question about this, because you're clearly not reading, it's in the pinned thing, like FAQs, we're just going to remove you from the group, because it was just spam of people asking, why is my print failing, when it was literally just the G-code was corrupted. Slice a file on your own and it'll work. It's crazy. So yeah. And mine did it too. I wish I should have saved that file. I wonder if somebody saved it. Actually, I think somebody made... Give me one sec. On Thingiverse, I think somebody made... It was on here. I don't know if they removed it. I told you, I'm not playing with you guys here. Oh, and this is amazing. Look at. So somebody made this, the actual Decapicat. There, this is a response to the corrupt cat.g code that is preloaded on the SD card for the CR10 printers. I use mesh mixture to remove its head to the paw. And then here, this guy literally made just a head you can print to shove in the bottom failed print. And this is what it's supposed to look like. That's what it's supposed to look like. And here's more of the Decapicat. Many have ended up with Decapicat that cuts its head off, but this one printed excellent for me. So this guy uploaded his cat.g code that isn't broken. I'm gonna download this just for funsies, just so I have the STL. I think I'm gonna have to print some cats. I think I'm gonna have to do one of those. So anyways, let's get into questions. Good, we got some questions here. Perry said, what are some common beginner mistakes I should know about I should know about so I can avoid them? So go ahead and, those of you guys watching, go ahead and put your comments, but I'm going to tell you right now, keep the damn printer stock for at least a month. As much as I would love to sell you parts, I would love you to buy parts. I also don't want you getting it over your head and getting frustrated and stopping 3D printing because you tried to upgrade too soon. So use a printer stock. If this is your first printer, use it stock for a month. Go ahead and buy stuff if you want, but I don't know how you could buy stuff if you don't know what you want already because you haven't used the printer. So use it stock. 2, don't buy crappy, cheap filament. There's so many issues when I started out that was caused by me being cheap, buying, you know, hey, this is an Amazon deal for $10 for a roll of filament. Oh, that's a great deal, except it printed like crap, and I'm pulling my hair out trying to figure out why I can't get good prints. So, like, we do sell filament. We do carry 3 different brands of filament. Coax, and then we have our spaghetti filament and our Easy Choice. All those are great filaments that you're going to get good prints out of. Be skeptical about really, really cheap filament. You get what you pay for when it comes to filament. End of discussion. You know, the problem you have is, especially with the really cheap stuff, is what a lot of these companies do is they'll put decent stuff out to get everybody hooked on it, and then everybody's talking, oh yeah, I buy this filament, guys. Oh yeah, I buy this. It's been great. Well, then the quality goes downhill after a couple months, and then they end up getting crap ratings, but everybody's still recommending it, and it still has good reviews because of the initial release. So that's one thing to be careful about. So buy decent quality filament. Like, it's going to save you time. Now, once you get more well-versed, go ahead and play around with the cheap stuff. But if you want to try to remove as many variables as possible, and it's a pain in the ass, and it's hard to identify, and I guarantee you, if you have a filament quality issue, and you try to post for help on Facebook or Discord or whatever, the majority of people are going to have no idea that it could be the filament, because they just don't have the experience, or it's never happened to them. So as somebody who's had these issues with cheap filament, stay away from the cheap filament. Pony up a couple extra bucks for the better rolls, whether it's from us, whether it's from Atomic or Coax directly. Like, get better filament. So, and then once you get better and more comfortable with the machine, tweaking and tuning it, then go ahead and play around with the cheaper stuff. Trying to think of the other stuff. 1, put a battery backup on the printer. And I say this, if you have issues with power frequently, a battery backup that will keep your printer on for a couple minutes is going to save your print from quick power flashes. The power resume on these printers that they come with, it kind of works, but your print looks like crap. It never resumes correctly. So for like an Ender 3 type printer, like somewhere in that size range, something like a 650 VA or 750 VA size battery backup is great. I have battery backups on every single machine. I'm not even exaggerating. Every single printer is on a battery backup. Like, for example, if you have multiple printers, you know, I found you could fit about 3 Ender 3s on a 1500 VA UPS, but battery backup's nice because, oh crap, the power flash, I was halfway through a print, I'm like 10 hours in, and now I got to restart it, and the power resume didn't work. Because here's the thing, most of the time, power resume doesn't work, and if it does, it mushes the layers, and it just doesn't look right. It messes your print up. Now, if you're printing stuff that's going to get post-processed and sanded, but I don't like relying on that because that feature is just there to check a box on the advertising papers to say it has power resume, because technically it does, but what they don't tell you is that it runs like crap. So, yeah. Don't get a junk one. I recommend sticking with APC and CyberPower for battery backup brands. I just inadvertently answered Julio's ones. APC and CyberPower. I've had bad luck with off brands. I've actually even had, I think Bagwood Singer, he had like a trip light or something, and the way it was doing the output, the simulated sine wave, it was blowing capacitors out on things and just giving terrible power. Yeah, so, and if you're running our firmware, now, firmware is something I would say you could play with, but let's see what the hive mind here thinks. Should a new user update their firmware to like something like our Unified 2 before they get started? What do you guys think? Because I think maybe, mainly because, hear me out, because especially with ours, you get baby stepping, which makes adjusting your first layer a little easier and more of the the workflow and the familiarity. If you're starting fresh, like it's better to start with a better firmware. Yeah, we don't have I think I've had like 3 major power outages where we've been out for more than like an hour here since I maybe 1 a year. But we have quick power flashes here occasionally, enough to where I buy them. And here's the other thing too. I use UPSs on my stuff because it conditions the power. Knock on wood, I rarely have electronic stuff die on me because it's all power conditioned. I also run whole house surge suppression as well on my panels. So we got, let's see. I'm going to see what people are saying about the firmware. No? Not many responses here. All right, I'm not going to wait any longer. All right, so we got Backwoods says yes, update firmware. 3D Experiment says yes, update firmware. Matt says no. Julio says he was terrified to mess with it when I started out. Firmware is going to be one of those things where you look at it, even with ours, it's simpler to use. Like if you guys think if you ever look at our firmware and think this is a lot, it's not. Go download Marlin and try to figure that out, and then come back and tell me that ours is complicated. It's all about perspective. I mean, it seems to be like people are kind of in between. I'm assuming... Oh, don't buy a printer with a touchscreen. Yeah, don't buy a printer with a touchscreen. That's... Yes, absolutely. They may not look as pretty. I'll tell you this. They don't look as pretty. Just the white text on the blue backgrounds. They don't look as pretty as a touchscreen. But they give you so many more features. So, yeah. Exactly. So, all right. Matt's saying, does the Tina 2 firmware work on all the knockoffs? I got a Bresser Raptor. I've never heard of that. I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Because I don't know what those other people, if they just literally white labeled it, or not. Like, if they just white label it and slap their name on it, I just Googled it, and I see this. I would say, looking at it, it looks like a straight up just rebrand. I'd say it'd probably work, but I'm not going to tell you yes, it'll work. So if you flash it and it breaks something, you're on your own. Make sure you have the access to the stock firmware. But if it's just a straight rebrand, it should be fine, assuming they didn't change anything. Most companies don't, but you know, I'm not going to give you an absolute because I know how people do stuff. Yeah, that's another good point too, because like even though I'm not a big fan of Clipper because I just want my printers to work and I don't want to spend hours messing with firmware, if you do want to run Clipper, those 128/64 screens with the white text on the blue background, that's what you want. The touch screens, forget about it. And I'm sure some neckbeards going to be like, well, actually, there's a touch screen that does work with Clipper. It's this, but I'm speaking in generalizations. All right. Dominic Versetto says, will input shaping always be a DIY option? Absolutely, because we are not going to spend tech support holding people's hand tuning their printer. If you want to get into it, that's an advanced feature, and you need to read. That is something I'm going to be doing a video on probably in about a month and a half. I got more stuff that needs to get done first, but there will be a video as well. There's also other videos out there on Marlin input shaping. So if you're using our unified firmware and you want to play with input shaping, just look up Marlin input shaping, and all that stuff applies to our firmware. It's all the same thing. Because unified firmware is running Marlin. That's what it is. Unified is built on top of Marlin 2. So, 3D Experience says, how easy or hard is it to replace PI coating on a spring steel sheet? You can do it, but it's a pain in the ass. I'm just going to say it. It's a pain in the ass. I'm assuming you mean the stick-on sheets. If it is the textured sheets, that is baked on. You're not getting it off. You could like sand it down and make it flat and use the other side to stick something else on, but you're not getting that coating off. But if it is our smooth sheets, those actually have a PEI sheet I found the best way to do it is to heat them up on your printer bed and then peel it off while it's warm, like 60, 70 C, and then take some acetone to get the rest of the residue off. That's what I would do. I don't even save our old plates anymore when they wear out. They're a consumable item. They get thrown out. Flex plates, where it's ours. I mean, I'm honest enough to tell you guys that it's a consumable item. I don't know if other companies will, but a flex plate's a consumable item. They're going to wear out. Yes, you can reuse them to a point, but they are a consumable item. So they're going to wear out at some point. They get thrown out. I mean, I've got textured plates here that are many years old. They're still going strong, but obviously the more you print on them, the more rough you are with them, the quicker they're going to wear out. So JDCC is asking about RPI availability. If you're talking about our Easy Pi kits, those, like I said, just to be clear, we're calling them the Easy Pi because they're using a Rock Pi type board, and that's what we've called our 3D printer controllers for a while. We're going to have those in about 3 to 5 days. So we're having those allowed for back order just because I know we can get the parts. And we're having inventory roll in for those. But in terms of Raspberry Pis, it beats me. There's a reason we're not using Raspberry Pi boards in these controllers anymore. Because I have the availability is like none. So yeah. All right. Let's see. Best way to get rid of old printers. I prefer Tannerite. If you guys have watched the video, I think I showed it on the channel here. If you look at my personal channel, there's a video of me getting rid of an ANET AA Plus with it. In all seriousness, though, see if there's schools that want them, you know, or hand them off to somebody else. I've probably given away over 30 or 40 printers at this point. You know, to schools, to people that need them, like just whatever, friends, like, here, take this printer. I'm tired of it. I need to make room for new, shinier printers. So, all right. But Tannerite's also the funnest. All right. Bean5 says, I have 2 Ender 3 variants. What's the best way to figure out their max print speed, or is there a common safe fast setting? So Ender 3 style, you're going to be in the 60 to 100 millimeters a second range, realistically 60 to 80. But basically, in any printer, because here's the thing, we could have 2 Ender 3s that are brand new out of the box. I might be able to push mine harder than you'll be able to push yours, depending on what state everything's in, depending on how well the hot end was built, depending on if the plastic extruder's cracked or not. Pushing printers is going to be very printer specific, especially once modifications are taken into consideration. Because something simple as just like changing the nozzle out for like our EasyFlow copper plated nozzles, that'll give you more flow rate so you can print faster. It really depends. You're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. And basically what you want to look for is when you're printing faster is, one, make sure you're not losing steps. So if your motors are going like making like really hard vibration noises, or you can see it skips steps, you're going too fast. And in that case, you start adjusting VREFs. If you're using like our Easy board, you can do that digitally. If you're using a Creality control board or some other basic control board, you usually have to manually go in there and adjust it. It gets very involved. So, but if you're talking about like, you know, stock printers or just, you know, lightly modified machines, you're not looking to go crazy, I would stick in the 60 to 100 millimeter a second print speed or less. Hang on 1 second. I'm gonna yell at the dogs. There we go. They're both on their beds now. I got like 8 minutes left. Can we be calm for 8 minutes? Can we do that? Thank you. All right. No more questions. I don't know if we're going to get through all of these, but I'm going to try here. All right. So Exile28 said, I read the input shaping guide, but a bit confused. Am I right in thinking there's no input shaping unless appropriate slicer settings are used? So input shaping is done on the printer's board. The initial setup of input shaping is done with a slicer generating a file that varies the frequency it's compensating at from start to finish. And then you measure that print to figure out what frequency it is. If you go on our website and put input shaping calculator, there's directions on there as well to calculate that. So, but once it's set up and you find your frequency that you put into your printer's firmware, There's no other changes needed to the slicer. The only time the slicer gets involved is during the initial calibration, and then everything else is business as usual. So hopefully that makes sense. So the only time you're messing with stuff is when you're doing the initial calibration to find out what frequencies on X and Y you're telling the printer to compensate for. After that, you can go back to printing as normal. Just pump your speeds up a little bit. That's it. So hopefully that clarifies that. JCCC is asking if I heard anything about Creality's new K series printers. It's the first I've heard about that. Tor, I know you're watching. Make a note of that and start sleuthing around. Speaking of Creality printers, is there any interest in us doing stuff for the Ender 5 S1? Because I have not heard anybody ask about it. I feel like that's kind of been a market flop. But I feel like I asked. Does anybody here have an Ender 5 S1 that would be interested in us doing stuff with it? No, not the Ender 5 Plus. I have a 5 Plus. I love my 5 Plus. Soval SVO5, maybe. I do have my eyes on the SVO5. Not even gonna lie. Not even gonna lie. It's on my want list. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to answer a quick question here. Felipe says he's got troubleshooting SD and it failed error on a CR10S running our firmware. Bad SD card or dirty slot. Here's another thing. Oh my God. I don't know why I've mentioned this before. So I have like a little tray of SD cards, okay? SD cards and adapters. And this is a really good example. Do you guys see how dirty the contacts are just from it being around? Okay? If your printer's not reading the SD card, whether you're trying to flash the firmware with it or you're printing from it, take some isopropyl alcohol and clean these contacts. And one thing I'll do with the printer power off is I'll actually leave some isopropyl alcohol on here and put it in the SD slot and inject it in and out really fast to try to use this to clean the contacts. And then I'll take it out, wipe it off. Start there if you're having SD problems. Also, if you have like a board and you're like, why is this not flashing? Check to see if your SD card is dirty. The thing with alcohol, like isopropyl alcohol, it will evaporate. So even though you get in the SD slot, you're cleaning out, just give it a couple minutes, it'll evaporate out. No harm, no foul. So try that. Start with the simple stuff. I have over 10 years of experience in networking. My background before I started TH3D was, servers, desktops, network equipment, so router switches, access points, all that stuff. Layer 1 issues. So there's the thing called the OSI You got your OSI models. I believe it's 7 layers. Someone correct me. 7 layers, right? My memory is serving me correct. But I always remember layer 1 is the physical layer. Layer 1 is the physical layer. So your cables, your plugs, always start with layer 1. Layer 1 issues was the phrase. Oh, it was a layer 1 issue. That meant, hey, something was physically screwed up. All right. So I don't see anybody having the Ender 5 S1. Yeah, it's too expensive. I would assume so. I don't even know what the price is. The Ender 3 S1 was a little too expensive when it came out. But they have lowered the price on it. It's almost like they realized I was right. But Dominic says around 40 more years ago, we used to clean copper and brass contacts with a pencil eraser. I have done that. I'm sure guys who have the NESs or SNESs, like the cards with the edge connectors, I know you guys have cleaned your contacts with a pencil eraser. Don't lie, you've done it. I've done it. I'm pretty sure it's not good for the cartridge. I think static or something, but I'm not gonna lie, I've done it. I've cleaned edge connectors with a pencil eraser before. All right, we got 3 more minutes. So I'm gonna try to go through here. Exile is asking about, he's got two-tone filament. It's not like two-tone paint on the car. How do the different colors show? Is it heat? Two-tone filament, like the stuff we have where it's 2 colors in one? Or like it shifts? I have no idea. I already answered Julio. Preferences on battery backup model, APC, and cyber power. What's a good small printer with portability in mind? Ender 2 Pro. But do note, the Ender 2 Pros, I will put an exclaimer. The Ender 2 Pros, the newer ones, as far as I know, are shipping with really crappy processors that you can't modify the firmware. Now, they did release source code, but you can't compile it. But they released the source code. So, Ender 2 Pro, stock, it's okay. But if you want to do anything, sort of mods and firmware stuff to it, you're going to replace the board. You got our EasyBoard V2, the Creality 427 boards. Those are all drop-in replacements. They're a hell of a lot better than the stock one. But out of the box, it's not a bad print. So, all right. I heated up. I don't know if he's talking about. Oh, the temperature. Yeah, there's filaments that just change with temperature. It's just like the additive they put in there. I've had some of those. Those are kind of cool. Like I had a cup. I printed a cup, and like you put your hand on it, and you can see your handprint on it. It's kind of cool. I have some around here somewhere. Actually, I have like half of a roll. It's some off-brand I got. But it works. All right. Are the lights broken? No. Hang on, command. Oh, it's not even listed in here. You know why it's not working? Because apparently the backup I restored from didn't have that in there. Well, I guess that's going to be broken because that was a lot to set up. I'll have to do that again later. All right. All right, let's see. I'm coming up on the 1 hour mark, so let's see. Brandon, it says, you guys have firmware for the SKR E3 made to run the CR10 V3. I can't find a good template. We do not, because that board is not for that printer. Yes, you can use it for that printer, but that board does not bolt up right into that printer and directly replace it. So in a printer like that, the CR10 V3, when you put another board in there, you are now building a custom printer. So if you're building a custom printer, you need to learn how to do the firmware. Now, the thing is, if you have it all hooked up and wired it and you need help, you can pay us for consulting time. You know, like if you were to call a computer person, be like, hey, I need help setting up my printer, or I need help setting up, well, not, the printer was a bad example, like boring printer, 2D printer. But like, you know what I mean? We do have support services, and it's $50 for the first hour. It's $25 an hour after that, and we can build firmware. Now, custom firmware, we could modify our existing firmware to work on that we have for the SKR E3 Mini V3. It'd probably be about an hour to 2 hours of time to get that done. But just in general, for anybody watching this, so as soon as you take a board that is not a drop-in replacement, meaning you take the old board out, the new board matches all the bolt holes, it matches the USB place, it matches, or USB position, the SD position. As soon as you have to start printing adapters to fit that board into another printer, you are now essentially building a custom printer. So you can do that. That board will absolutely run that printer, but you're going to have to set the firmware up. And because like what we like to do with our firmware is we focus on drop it in, hook everything up. With that printer, you're doing modifications. So at that point, it would be a DIY type printer. Now, we do have, for our EasyBoard V2, we have what's called a DIY firmware, which I was thinking about doing for the SKR E3 series as well. And what that does is that guides you through setting up like your motor directions, your steps per millimeter, your end stop logic, whether it's a true or false. That's something I was thinking about doing for the newer SKR E3 versions. I actually have the Big Tree Tech Octopus 1.1 here, which I'm starting work on next week. I'll probably play with it this weekend, to be honest. But doing DIY firmware, because this is a custom board. This is not a board that's designed to be dropped in to replace another one. This is meant to be integrated into a printer that you're building from scratch. So that kind of thing. So, you know, that would be a couple of different options. So yeah, we do have, so anybody watching, if you guys do need help with your printer and you're willing to pay us for our time, we do have that as available. Just send us a message. And like I said, and that'll even include like, hey, we'll send you, we use Microsoft Teams here. So we send you a Teams link. We all jump on a call. You know, you got your camera and stuff. We can help you with the wiring. Basically, we can help you with whatever you want, whether it's doing custom firmware setup, whether it's, hey, like, I can't figure out why this isn't turning on. Okay, like, yeah, put your phone here. Show me the inside of the control box. Okay, let's check all the wiring. Okay, that looks good. Oh, that's off. Let's change that kind of stuff. So we do have that as a service. So let us know. And myself, I do that. Tor and Peter do that as well. So yeah. All right. We're officially at the hour mark, so I'm just going to look here. 3D experiments, how important is it to get the bed and nozzle temp up to print temp before doing a mesh with easy ABL? It is moderately important. That's with any ABL probe. And it's not because of the probes. It is because the bed geometry changes as you heat it. Does that make sense? So as your bed is heating up, it is changing shape slightly. Like on some of these printers, you can take a dial indicator, mount it to your hot end, like stick it on there so it doesn't move. And then tell it to heat, okay? And you'll see it change height. That's why. We don't have you guys preheat the bed and stuff with our ABL kits, and the BL Touch doesn't even bother telling you to do this. We do this because it's important. And a lot of people think it's because because our sensors drift with temperature. It's not. We do that because the beds change geometry as they're heated. Even the most flat beds will still warp a tiny bit. But on these Chinese printers that have these cheap aluminum beds are usually rolled, they are going to change, they're going to deform, and they're going to be slightly different every single time they heat and cool. That's another reason we tell you, get a new mesh, run a G29 every single print. Now, if you're a BL Touch user, that's really painful because their probes are so damn slow. If you're an easy ABL user, it takes less than 30 seconds on most printers, unless you're running like a billion points. On most printers with a 3x3 or 5x5 grid, less than 30 seconds for a 3x3 and less than a minute for a 5x5. Like way faster. I run 3x3s on every single one of my printers at this point, even that big guy. 3x3 grid. Works great. Because the chances are most of the beds, your warping is typically either going to be your bed dipping down or blowing up in the center, and having a 3x3 grid, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, takes care of, it gets you close enough. It's not ever going to be perfect. The way to get it perfect would be getting a really expensive bed that is, milled out, like actually machined out from a cast aluminum plate, but that's hundreds of dollars. Nobody wants to do that. So the next thing is you just put a compensation method on there, which is what the auto bed leveling does. So, all right. Let's see. Peter says, time to get into IDEX printers if I want to get more gray hairs. Absolutely. I'm looking here. Bag was asking about our Ender 5 Mercury kit. We just had a meeting about that today, and it's being planned out right now. Like, we're actually doing pushes on it now that we got the pies done. Those pie kits were taking up a lot of time. Like I have put just in testing and development, I have put over 60 hours into those kits over the last month. So, because I want to make sure they're perfect. All right. I'm seeing any other ones. So I think I'm gonna see here. I'll take Bean's last question. He said, I have a dual Z setup on Ender 3. Is it worth upgrading a board with 5 drivers to control each Z motor? In my opinion, no. I don't think it is. I don't. You can do it. Go ahead. I don't think it is, personally. I think you'd be better off getting a belt to link the two together and just keep it simple like that. Or hear me out, you could do what the Soval SV06 does, which is mount some blocks at the top of your gantry and just use, you can set up the firmware to do the auto Z alignment where it just brings them up to the top and rams them and then brings them back down. That's actually a very effective thing and it doesn't hurt anything. So anyways, since the doggos did actually listen and they were quiet, do you want to give your dingus one? You want to get here? Which one's going to follow? What's going to go to you? Oh, you're going to get my boy? Okay. Remo is an opportunist. Comment. Hang on. Comment. I have treats. Sit. Good boy. Good boy. Look how. You see how much more intense Remo is? Sit. But sit. Touch. Comment. Hey, don't comment. Sit. Good boy. Good boy. All right. There we go. Okay. So, I'm going to push that firmware update. So, someone was asking about the Tina 2. I actually meant to do that last weekend, and I forgot because I didn't make myself a task. So, I'm going to do that right now. So, if you guys have a Tina 2, the compile issue where it's throwing like the Z-min errors, that's going to be fixed. So, anyways, I appreciate you guys stopping by. I hope you guys learned something. And as always, happy printing. I will see you guys on the next one.